Our first speaker, who needs no introduction, Dr. Rory Monaghan. He's lecturer in energy systems engineering at NUIGalway, which he's done since 2012. He's a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from NUIGalway and holds master's and PhD degrees from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, in 2005 and 2010. And I think he's well known for his applied research in energy systems, ranging in scale from fuel particles right through to national energy infrastructure. I was going to say, look, Rory's been ploughing a lone furrow in the hydrogen, but he seems to have quite a posse gathered around him now, and certainly he's been very welcome at our conferences for the last couple of years. The title of Rory's presentation is Developing Ireland's Hydrogen Potential. Over to yourself, Rory.
Thank you very much, and I guess I'll just say that I'm certainly not ploughing a lone furrow. I'll be referencing some excellent work that's going on here, and actually a couple of the people on this panel and in later panels are deeply involved in some really exciting developments in hydrogen. So I'll be referencing those. So just to give a brief outline then of what I'll be talking about, because I'm the first up, and I maybe don't need to do this, just give a brief overview of what hydrogen's role could be in energy transitions. I think a couple of years ago, when Owen first asked me to speak at one of the Energy Ireland conferences, I think my entire presentation was about kind of background of, what could hydrogen do. But I think the debate has really moved on from that now, and it's focusing more on how can we get there, what are the specific challenges, and what are the specific opportunities. So I won't spend too long on that. I'll talk a bit about the momentum that's developing across Europe and here in Ireland. And then maybe I'll talk about why I think Ireland's a little bit different to our near neighbours in Europe, and what I think potential routes around that could be. So look, this is our sort of traditional view of green hydrogen here. That it's produced from renewables. When we power electrolysis from renewable energy, we can call that green hydrogen. Why is it worthwhile? Well, it can be used for transporting energy over very long distances, in the same way that we transport oil or LNG. It can be a storage medium, and then on the right-hand side of the graph, we can use hydrogen in a range of different end-use sectors. Now, one thing that I'm going to really emphasize in this presentation is that most of these end-use sectors do not use hydrogen right now. The vast bulk of hydrogen that is used is as a renewable feedstock, or sorry, as an industrial feedstock, and it's not coming from renewables. The traditional way of producing hydrogen I've shown on the bottom here in these gray boxes. This is what people refer to as gray hydrogen, where you get a hydrocarbon, usually natural gas. You essentially crack the hydrogen out of the natural gas, and that carbon dioxide gets emitted to the atmosphere. If you do a carbon capture and storage process on that, you can then change that from gray hydrogen to blue hydrogen, and you can theoretically produce hydrogen with no carbon footprint either. It comes from a different route. It's not coming from electricity, it's coming from natural gas. The European Union, as is becoming increasingly known now, has made hydrogen a central part of its decarbonisation plans from 2030 to 2050. And this is just to give a sort of an overview of where it fits. This is encapsulated in the EU Energy System Integration Strategy. And this is a strategy by which the EU has got four overarching priorities in terms of how the energy system will be decarbonised. First and most important one is energy efficiency. Second one is circularity. So that means seeing if you can use the waste of one process or product as an input for another, reducing the need for raw materials. Direct renewable electrification. So there's maybe two things included there. So the aim is to widely electrify things like transportation, things like heating. And if your electricity is coming from renewables or other zero carbon sources, then you are decarbonising these sectors which are not currently electrified. And then the fourth one where hydrogen fits is this clean fuels for hard to abate sectors. And this includes things like hydrogen, but it also includes things like biomass, biofuels, carbon capture and storage. And the hard to abate sectors are really where hydrogen sees its advantage. And these are things like industrial heat, long distance transport, heavy duty transport, aircraft, ships, long-term energy storage. These are very, very difficult to decarbonize by any of the other means that we have available to us. And hydrogen is part of the solution there. As part of this energy integration strategy to support the hydrogen's role in it, the EU has developed a hydrogen strategy, which is a plan from 2020 to 2030 to create 40 gigawatts worth of electrolysis capacity within the European Union, and a further 40 gigawatts worth in North Africa and former Soviet Union from which the European Union could import green hydrogen. So there's a kind of a waypoint in 2024 where there's an aim to have 6 gigawatts of renewable hydrogen electrolysis installed across the European Union. And 6 gigawatts, give or take, is same order of Ireland's total maximum electrical demand. So it sort of gives a flavor for the scale of what we're talking about here, and aiming for 40 gigawatts by 2030. So where can hydrogen fit? And this is a sort of a busy graph, but it's one that I like to show because it just shows the potential for hydrogen in addressing decarbonisation targets. What this graph is showing on the left-hand side, this orange dotted bar essentially is showing that the European Union has to avoid the release of 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide in order to keep, if the European Union was to do its share to keep the world to a 1 to 2 degrees warming scenario, it would have to avoid the release of 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide. This colored section in the middle with 562, this is what modeling suggests hydrogen could be responsible for. So it could be responsible for closing about 50% of the gap in Europe's current emission trajectory to get us down to the 1.
Just seem to have lost Rory. We're just trying to reconnect him. He's back now.
Have I dropped out?
You dropped out for a couple of minutes or so there.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, you can hear me okay?
Yep, you're fine.
Now?
Yep.
Okay, apologies, my internet looks strong, but I'll try closing a few other windows here maybe. So essentially what I'm saying here is that hydrogen is modeling suggests that hydrogen-based technologies can meet about 50% of Europe's current shortfall in emissions reduction strategies, spread across a number of key sectors here. So the dark blue is transportation. The light blue at the bottom there is industrial feedstock, and the grey is industrial heat. The green is heat for buildings. So, looking at the relative sizes of these, I think is quite instructive. So since the European Union has developed its overall strategy, there's been a number of national strategies that have been developed. And I just want to touch on a few of the key ones here. So the one that most people are aware of is the German national strategy, and that's what the image shows. But a range of countries, France, Germany, Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, and Spain, have all launched hydrogen strategies since the European Union started to develop its own. Australia, Canada, Japan, America also have their strategies. Theirs are a little different to the EU in that I've colored the EU countries there green. They are all very strongly focused on green hydrogen, on developing electrolysis and integrating them with a renewable electricity system, where the Australian, Canadian, American strategies are kind of a mix. They're saying that That could be green, could be blue, could be other types of hydrogen. The Japanese one is very much focused on importing of hydrogen. So, you know, they have a strong kind of multi-sector focus, these different strategies. But the first and the most important thing, and a message that I want to carry on into the rest of my talk here, is that the first step for hydrogen is seen as a replacement for fossil generated hydrogen. And that's something that is very, very different to Ireland, which I'll emphasize in a moment. Keeping an eye out in the UK, their hydrogen strategy is their long-awaited hydrogen strategy will be hopefully brought out later this summer. So there's some momentum. There's plenty of momentum in projects across Europe. I only wanted to show one slide on this. I could have filled maybe 10 slides with the amount of hydrogen announcements. But I've tried to pick some of the announcements that I think are maybe closer to reality or already in place. The image on top there is a 6 megawatt green hydrogen production plant, which is currently the largest in the world. So just to put a bit of perspective on this, 6 megawatts is the largest green hydrogen production site in the world, and it's at a steel plant in Austria. There's currently a larger one at an oil refinery in Germany. 10 megawatts is currently under construction, and then we're getting into these kind of really large gigawatt scale, hundreds of megawatt scale projects that are planned mostly around the North Sea, with all the offshore wind that's planned there. And the image below shows one of the really ambitious Dutch plans to sort of transform the Dutch energy system to a wind and hydrogen based system. So what has been driving these? What have been the key factors? Well, cost of renewable electricity is going down. The cost of equipment is going down. There is really strong government support in all of these countries, especially the countries around the North Sea, for promoting hydrogen. And very importantly, and one that I really want to emphasize, there's already an existing large-scale demand for hydrogen. And any of the hydrogen strategies, if you read them, and any of the hydrogen modeling that's coming out, is showing that hydrogen in these countries is making its mark by 2030 in the industrial sector, where grey hydrogen is already being used. So there's an existing demand that they're essentially going to swap their supply for. In Ireland, there's plenty of announcements being made. I've just picked three: the ESB Equinor project for Moneypoint, the EIH2 project for Cork Harbour, 50 megawatts green hydrogen, and there's a green hydrogen storage project under development between ESB and decarbonisation in Dublin Bay. But there's many more in the pipeline. Some of them just haven't gone public yet. So this is to try and get across the what I was talking about with how Ireland's pathway might be different to the European Union's, to other countries. The International Energy Agency earlier this year released a study on the prospects for hydrogen in Northwestern Europe, and they focused on literally every country in Northwestern Europe except for Ireland. If you look at it's our 7 neighbouring countries are listed there in this graph, and they all have combined over 6 million tonnes a year hydrogen demand. Ireland's current hydrogen demand is about 2,000 tonnes per year. So we're many different orders of magnitude. And what I want to try and get across here is that we're seeing lots of development in hydrogen supply projects in Ireland, but we're not yet seeing huge developments in hydrogen demand. Now that is starting to change. We're starting to see changes in the transportation sector. In the next couple of weeks, Dublin Bus, CIE and Bus Éireann will be operating the first 3 scheduled passenger services in a Republic of Ireland city, running on hydrogen fuel cell buses. So that's a great development, but we're at the very early stages yet, and we don't currently have this base of industrial use of hydrogen that the other European countries are relying on. So our roadmap necessarily needs to be different. Some thoughts here on where we could put hydrogen into Ireland's energy transition if we don't have these existing sources of hydrogen. This is based on some ongoing work that I'm doing with the International Energy Agency on trying to characterize how countries are thinking about where hydrogen fits in. And a lot of it comes down to, on the end use side, again, if we don't have this large-scale industrial use, where can we use it? Buses, gas peaking plants, data centers, possibly in the future, the longer term, moving into aviation and shipping, finding some new industries that we can stimulate here in Ireland. But it will be a different path. So how do we get to this scenario where we have off-takers for hydrogen? Well, in the first instance, there needs to be stimulation of demand. We're starting to see here with these supply projects being promoted, but with no demand, we're starting to see the formation of this classic chicken and egg thing with hydrogen, that these projects, unless they get off-takers of hydrogen, will be delayed, will be hampered to get off the ground. So how do we do that? Well, co-funding for trial and purchase of hydrogen vehicles. Again, transport for Ireland is probably going to be the first mover here. Co-funding for filling stations. This is the Swiss model. The Swiss government has co-funded a network of filling stations across the country for trucks, and now Switzerland is seeing an influx of hydrogen fuel cell heavy goods vehicles coming into the country. Incentivizing developments of hydrogen hubs and valleys. So this is really the idea of reducing risk and clustering suppliers and users together. The UK has done this. There's the Teesside initiative, there's the HyNet initiative, and they're trying to bring together potential producers and users where you can drive economies of scale and get the risk down. Including hydrogen in renewable transport fuel schemes. This is another scheme that's in the UK. Now, there will be a recasting of the biofuel obligation scheme that's coming out this summer, and it does seem likely that hydrogen will be included in that. So that's a great step. And also, this last point isn't an incentive, but I think it's a key piece of knowledge that needs to be developed here, is understanding what are our options for decarbonising heat in the built environment. The Irish government has committed to a deep retrofit plan and to the rolling out of about 600,000 heat pumps by 2030 in 5
minutes, Rory. 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So committed to a deep rolling out of heat pumps, but it's not clear to what extent the gas grid carrying hydrogen could play a role in that. And it really hasn't been studied in a large scale independent way in Ireland. The UK has performed some carbon budgeting work out to 2050 and is showing that the most cost effective energy system for decarbonising heat is a mix of heat pumps, majority heat pumps, but with a core function for hydrogen and the gas grid being used to deliver heat to non-industrial users. So this work hasn't been done in Ireland yet, and I think there's some important findings that could be made here. I don't have time to go into the details about why I think that in the time available, but I think if we base our heat policy completely pushing hydrogen to the side, I think we have the opportunity to build a lot of inflexibility into our energy system. So just touching then on some of the projects that I think are helping to bring this whole sort of supply and demand along together. GenCom is one that I've spoken about at previous conferences with Energy Ireland. It's aiming to build Ireland's first green hydrogen value chain, based in County Antrim, using an electrolyser to transport hydrogen to Belfast to run 3 double-decker buses. So this will be a first for the island, and it will be, all the pieces of this puzzle will be operational, we hope, in the next 1 to 2 months. The fueling station is currently under construction as we speak. Another project which isn't based in Ireland but has Irish involvement is the Green Highland project in Majorca. So there is a difference in how Ireland is currently positioned with hydrogen relative to our other Northwest European neighbours. They all have industrial uses of hydrogen. Majorca is an island that does not have industrial uses of hydrogen. It's got it's also an island with heavy dependence on tourism. So there are some parallels in Ireland. Our weather might not be the same, our source of renewable energy might not be the same, but there is lots of learnings that we can bring from a study like Green Highlands to show how a similar economy that doesn't have that heavy industrial demand for hydrogen can adopt hydrogen. So NUIGalway and High Energy Consulting in the UK are partners on this project on the techno-economic and socio-economic side. The last thing I want to flag is a project that is just about to kick off now, called Highlight, Leading Ireland's Green Hydrogen Transition. And there's a 3-year project between a 25-strong industry consortium and 3 universities, DCU, NUIGalway, and UCC. And it's funded through the MaREI Research Centre, which is the National Renewable Energy and Climate Research Centre. And it's to essentially develop Ireland's roadmap. I've kind of gone to great pains to say here that how Ireland's roadmap will not be the same as Denmark's or Sweden's or Norway's or Germany's. We're going to have to develop our own, or even the UK's. You know, we don't have the heavy industrial use of gas and hydrogen that the UK does. So we will have to build our own roadmap, and Highlight is our attempt to do that. So with that, I'll leave it there, and I'll be happy to take any questions I think later we're doing questions maybe on. So look, thank you very much.